Throughout the long history of tragedies, Veronica Lake's story stands out as one of the most heartbreaking. Once a Hollywood icon, with her trademark peekaboo blonde hair and fragile beauty, she captivated audiences in roles as the cold-blooded femme, Fatale. But the glamour couldn't hide the cracks in her personal life, addiction, broken marriages, and a lonely death in a hospital. What mysteries lie behind such a turbulent life? Stay until the end of this video to uncover the tearful story of a once radiant star. Before we dive deeper, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Grab yourself a warm drink, maybe a cup of tea or just water, and sit back as we begin this journey together. Veronica Lake, born Constance Frances Marie Aileman in 1,922 inches Brooklyn, New York, came from a background that had nothing to do with glamorous Hollywood. Her father worked for an oil company, and her mother was a middle-class woman. But that seemingly ordinary childhood shattered when Lake was just 10 years old. Her father died in a horrific industrial explosion in Philadelphia, leaving a void that could never be filled and forever altering the course of her life. Her mother, Connie, soon remarried and moved frequently, channeling her unresolved grief into pushing her daughter toward a future she herself had once dreamed of. Although Lake never truly wanted to be an actress, her mother's relentless control forced her into the path of cinema. Determined to make her daughter a star, Connie even uprooted the family to Beverly Hills when Lake was only 16. For Lake, this wasn't just ambition. It became a long psychological battle with a mother who insisted on living through her. Her first big break came in 1940. Arthur Hornblow Jr., a respected producer, was searching for fresh talent for the film I Wanted Wings, starring William Holden. At her audition, he immediately recognised something striking about the petite young woman. Yet, Hornblow also realised that the name Constance Ackman was too heavy and lacked star appeal. He suggested a change. Veronica Lake, inspired by her serene blue eyes that reminded him of a still reflective lake. From that moment, a new name was born. And with it, the beginning of a legend. When I Wanted Wings premiered, Lake was still just an 8-year-old girl, barely over 5 tons tall. Yet, on screen, she outshone everyone. Audiences fell in love with her sparkling eyes, gentle voice, and most of all, her silky blonde hair. The press quickly dubbed her the biggest discovery of 1941. But behind the spotlight was a thorny reality. Lake was never known for being easy to work with. She often arrived late, carried herself with an air of arrogance, and forced director Mitchell Lizzen to devise ways to lock her on set all day just to keep discipline. Ironically, Lake's career was shaped by a happy accident. During one scene, her long hair slipped down, covering one eye. Lake panicked, thinking it ruined her image. But producer Arthur Hornblow saw something special. He encouraged her to keep it, and the peekaboo hairstyle was born. Almost overnight, it became a nationwide craze. Men were captivated by the mysterious allure, while women rushed to salons to copy their idol. The peekaboo style became inseparable from Veronica Lake, a trademark that still resonates in pop culture. Even the animated character Jessica Rabbit later echoed the look. Suddenly, the small, reluctant girl once pressured by her mother found herself at the pinnacle of fame. Yet, as the glow of Hollywood's spotlight surrounded her, danger and downfall quietly crept in, setting the stage for the string of tragedies that would follow behind the dazzling lights. In 1940, at just around 18 years old, she suddenly found herself in the arms of John S. Deadly, a seasoned art director 14 years her senior, who had already secured a solid place in the film industry. Their marriage happened so quickly, it felt more like a gamble of youth than a love story. But for anyone expecting a sweet romance, disappointment came swiftly. What awaited Lake was not happiness, but a string of silent tragedies after her breakthrough. And I Wanted Wings. The studio decided to push Lake into stardom with a role in Sullivan's Travels opposite Joel McCrea, and under the direction of Preston Sturgis, one of Hollywood's top filmmakers at the time. Everyone was certain this film would launch her to the heights of fame. Yet, on the very first day of shooting, everything fell apart. Sturgis was stunned to discover a secret Lake had kept hidden. She was 6 months pregnant. Her rounded belly could no longer be concealed, and her silence erupted into scandal. Known for his fiery temper, Sturgis was so furious the crew had to restrain him from lashing out in violence. In the end, the production team was forced to disguise the truth on screen, through baggy costumes, careful camera angles, and even body doubles. The film was completed, but Lake's reputation came out tarnished. Joel McCrea bitterly remarked, "Life's too short to make another picture with Veronica Lake." That statement left a scar on her already fragile career. In truth, Lake had never truly longed for the spotlight. She was more like an unwilling player swept into the machinery of fame. Yet once inside, she became intoxicated by its allure. From that moment, a darker door opened. Alcohol. Night after night, she appeared at parties, drinking until she staggered. By morning, she arrived on set with a pale face, heavy eyes, and breath reeking of liquor. Hollywood was a cold place, and a drunken, unpredictable female star was never tolerated for long, but alcohol was only the surface. Behind the facade of a young wife, Veronica Lake threw herself into a string of whirlwind affairs. Howard Hughes, the legendary aviation tycoon Aristotle Onassis, the Greek shipping magnate who would later marry Jackie Kennedy and Marlon Brando, the rebellious heartthrob of Hollywood, all appeared on her list of lovers. For Lake, romance seemed less about passion and more about power games, a way to escape the suffocating confines of marriage. Yet those games left a lasting impression. The image of an unruly, troubled star who could never quite be tamed. And Hollywood never forgave. When rumours spread that Lake was bitter and sharp-tongued, colleagues gradually kept their distance. The image of the blonde goddess was quickly replaced by the nickname the Shrew. Actor Eddie Bracken, who had only just worked with her on Star Spangled Rhythm in 1942, didn't hesitate to mock her, saying she fully deserved the label. From the peak of promise, Veronica Lake slipped into a whirlpool of scandal, one in which she was both victim and contributor. The true tragedy struck just a few months later, silencing even her harshest critics. In July 1943, after giving birth to her first daughter, Elaine, Lake was pregnant again with her second child by her first husband, John Detley. But fate delivered a cruel blow. While working on set, she tripped on a stone, suffered a severe fall, and went into premature labour. The baby boy Anthony was born frail and could not survive. He lived for only about a week before passing away. The loss shattered the couple and pushed their already fragile marriage to the breaking point. That same summer, Lake and Detley separated, finalising their divorce before the year's end. Stunned and adrift, Lake almost hurled herself into one wrong decision after another. Only a few months later, she hastily married director Andre Detto. They had 2 children together, Michael and Deanna. Yet, instead of peace, Lake once again descended into chaos. Her career began to falter. From 1944 onward, a string of box office failures followed. The most notorious being her role as Dora Brookman in The Hour Before Dawn. Instead of exuding menace, her awkward German accent provoked laughter. That same year, during a war bond rally in Boston, her uninspired speech was publicly derided as unconvincing. The glow dimmed, and the image of the silver screen goddess quickly faded. Just when it seemed her career was doomed, opportunity returned unexpectedly in 1946 with the film noir classic The Blue Dahlia. The production had all the right ingredients. The first original screenplay by famed crime writer Raymond Chandler, and her strong chemistry with Alan Ladd, a co-star with whom Lake truly clicked. But behind the camera, tensions exploded. Almost from day one, Lake found herself at odds with Chandler, a man both respected and feared in Hollywood, despite his alcoholism and the fact that he hadn't even finished the script when filming began. Lake's mistake came from sheer carelessness. Not knowing who Chandler really was, she misspoke during an interview. Instead of studying his work, Lake merely picked up a few casual anecdotes from the publicity director and repeated them to the press. To Chandler, this was nothing short of disrespect. Since he already disliked Lake's acting, the tension only grew worse. Chandler bluntly declared that she was soulless, that everything about her was hollow. In private conversations, he didn't hesitate to humiliate her. She's nothing more than a pig. The only value she has is when she stays silent and pretends to be mysterious. That contempt resurfaced when Chandler reviewed Lake's close-up scenes. She tries to look worried, but all it does is make me want to vomit over the fence. Although The Blue Dahlia became a major box office success, the behind-the-scenes clashes left a lasting stain on Lake's career. Worse still, after the film's release, Chandler continued his mockery, giving her the cruel nickname Veronica Lake, a play on words that twisted her once glamorous name into an insult. The year 1952 marked the darkest turning point in Veronica Lake's life. Following a string of box office flops and mounting debts, the star, once hailed as Hollywood's blonde goddess, had her family's only home seized by the IRS. For many, it might have been just a financial blow. But for Lake, it felt like the final door slamming shut, dragging her entire world into darkness. Despair quickly spiraled into a full-blown mental breakdown. Lake not only abandoned her marriage, but also walked away from her family. Her next move was shockingly reckless. Using the pilot's license she had earned years earlier, she took the family's private plane, left her husband and children behind, and flew solo from Los Angeles to New York. It wasn't a quest for freedom. It was a desperate escape. Lake later admitted that at that time, she despised Hollywood entirely and was willing to do anything to break free from the merciless glare of its spotlight. But leaving the spotlight didn't mean finding peace. For many years afterward, Lake disappeared from Hollywood's map. No roles, no premieres, just a silent shadow drifting through the city. Then, in 1962, a reporter from the New York Post happened to trace her steps and uncovered a shocking truth. Veronica Lake, the once glittering beauty icon, was now working as a cocktail waitress at the Martha Washington Hotel, living in anonymity under the name Connie Dath. The story spread like wildfire. Fans around the world were shaken, torn between sympathy and curiosity. They flooded her with letters, gifts, and even money. Most striking of all was Marlon Brando, her famous former lover, who immediately arranged to send Lake a check for $1,000. Yet, instead of cashing it in to ease her struggles, Lake kept the check, framed it, and hung it on her wall like a treasured relic. To her, it wasn't charity. It was proof that even at rock bottom, someone still remembered the sparkle of her past. But that bittersweet comfort opened another path. Stirred up by the public's attention, Lake seemed to feel that Hollywood hadn't let her go. Not long after, she returned to the screen, taking on small parts in television and film, and even published her memoir, The Autobiography of Veronica Lake. By then, however, the world had changed, and so had she. Her beauty, the weapon that once propelled her into stardom, was now just a shadow of what it had been. Years of drinking had left harsh marks on her face. In her 40s, she looked old, weary, and etched with sorrow. One journalist, who met her at the time, bluntly wrote that she looked no different from a household maid. In the final pages of her memoir, Veronica Lake admitted that her greatest regret in life was not spending enough time with her children. Yet, in later private conversations, a darker truth emerged. By the end of her life, she seemed to have lost faith in everyone, even her own family. In one rare interview, she openly declared, "I will not cling to my blood relatives, nor will I let them cling to me. I know what happened to me because of them, and I will not repeat it." It wasn't just a defensive remark, but a sign that her soul had been torn apart beyond repair. The final years of Lake's life unfolded in exhaustion, both mentally and physically. In June 1973, while travelling across the United States to promote her memoir, she was suddenly struck by severe abdominal pain in Vermont. After examining her, local doctors delivered a grim diagnosis: end-stage cirrhosis, the consequence of years of heavy drinking. In a cold, detached tone, they told her she had only weeks left to live. And indeed, by early July of that year, Lake passed away from acute hepatitis at just 50 years old, leaving behind the haunting image of a fallen star. The bitter truth was that, even while alive, Lake was tormented by the belief that she possessed no real talent. "You could put all the talent I have into your left eye and still not lose your sight," she once said, half in jest, half in despair. Her insecurity was amplified when writer Raymond Chandler, who had worked with her, dismissed her mercilessly. Yet, there were voices of defence. Director Renee Clare, who helmed I Married a Witch, countered, "She was a girl with natural gifts. It's just that she never believed in them." After her death, revelations from her mother shocked the public further. Since childhood, Lake had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. This could explain her erratic moods, emotional instability, and impulsive decisions. Looking back at her lifelong dependence on alcohol, many modern researchers suggest it wasn't simply self-destruction, but rather a form of self-medication. For Lake, liquor became the cheapest remedy to dull Hollywood's relentless pressures, her corrosive self-doubt, and the nightmares that haunted her mind. Veronica Lake, the icon of the flowing blonde hair that veiled half her face, left behind an indelible cinematic legacy. Yet behind the glow of stardom, she will forever remain one of Hollywood's most tragic figures, beautiful, talented, but torn apart by wounds of the soul that neither fame nor time could ever heal.